Hey, Kester one, I guess. So I had a look at your post, and what I would recommend is basically doing a camera that has an aim, and that so if you do like create cameras, you can have a normal camera, you can have a camera and an aim, and you can have camera with an aim and an up. So I'm just using a camera and aim now, and basically that gives you a camera object which has the rotate dictated by an aim object here. So when you rotate this around, the camera will look at this point. So I can just show you what I have right now. So I have a sphere here, which is animated through the scene. This camera is following along this path. So let me just do that. So the camera is following along the path, and then here at like frame 50, it starts to look over to the object. It follows the object, and then at 85, it stops and goes back to the camera path. And that's what you want, right? So the important thing here is basically when you want to do something like this, pretty much every time when you want to rig up something in Maya, and especially if you're attaching it to paths, you always want to have like an intermediary object. Because if you just attach, like if I just do this locator now, and it's this one in it, it will have this, but you can't really start to do like keyframes on this now, because that will be, you see you're getting this green, the screen here basically means that you got a pair blend coming in, and that's not good. As soon as you have something that's constrained, you just want to keep it like that. So what I'm doing here is I'm constraining one object to this path, and then I'm keeping everything underneath free, which is basically I've constrained this camera one group to the path, and I made a duplicate of the camera aim object, which I basically just call it ground follow, no group follow lock, just a random name, but I made a duplicate in the exact same place. That's really important. And then what I did was on the camera aim, I put a point constraint between where it has this group follow lock and the sphere as the targets. Then I'm basically animating those targets. So you can see I've got keyframes on frame 1 and on frame 50. So between frame 50 and 60, I'm changing the target from the group follow to the p-sphere one. And I keep that until 85, and then I switch over again over these 10 frames. And basically that will allow you to move along the path, move the focus to the object and then move it back. So I'll just go through now quickly how I've set this up. So here we got the path and we got the object. So if we now do create cameras, camera and aim, you'll get this camera group. So really in here, you've got your camera. If you move that around, that will always aim towards this camera aim. You can move this around. And if you move the camera group around, we move both together, and that's really, really useful for us. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to duplicate this camera aim now. No way, I'm going to do that afterwards because we gotta fix this up. So let me do this. So now we've got the camera group following along here, right? But we don't have any like constraints on the translate X on this or on this one, so we're all good on that. So we just want to move these values around so that we're getting the camera to pointing forward. So that will be -5 on Y and 0 there. So now we just moved that around. And now I want to duplicate out this this locator, and I'll just call it group follow lock, or you call it like path follow lock or path lock or whatever. Point being is that this is going to move with the group and give us, it's basically going to give us this this example here that we're expecting, just pointing straight forward. So what I want to do now is select this group follow lock, select the p-sphere 1, then select the camera aim. Select the camera aim last. So you select all your targets first, and then you select the object to be affected. Then do constraint, and I do point. And by default, this has 1, target, so it will go in the middle of both these, of the translations of both of these. So by default, we want it to follow the path. So you can then key selected. So we've set the p-sphere 1 to 0, ground follow lock to 1, and if we now go through, that's what happens. So what I can now go is, okay, from, you want to, for instance, follow him completely from frame 40. So let's start a bit earlier on like frame 30. Go to, so in between here it's going to follow the path completely. And then by frame 45 we want it to look at p-sphere 1. So if we do 0 on the ground follow lock, group follow lock, and then 1 key, and you can see it follows completely, and then it starts to move over nicely in between there. And then we can say, okay, 80 is going to be the last complete. And then by 95, he's going to go back to the path. And if we keyframe that again, ooh, it's chugging a bit strangely here now. So you can see that's basically what I would recommend that you do. That gives you a lot of, when you separate it out like this and just using constraints to drive it, it gives you a lot of flexibility in how you want to set up things as well. And you could even have a group above this camera aim, which you did the constraints on. And you know what, let's just do that right now, because if I group this as well and do this, so if I set up the constraint on the group instead, do that. If I just do this really quickly now, do this, that 1, 0. Let me just select that constraint so I can easily see my keyframes, and key, and 0, and 1, then we're back. Oop, yeah, sorry. So let me zero that out. Now it works exactly. Yeah, so what happened was that when I grouped it, it kept its translate values, so it pushed it forward again. So just make sure that it's in the correct place. Because the thing now is, now this group will follow completely, but we still have the option to do some animation on this locator. So I can still move this around and do stuff like this. So if I like zero it out, we go here. So if we go and do like here, I can basically do something like this. For instance, if you want to like change the focus while you're looking, oh, that was really bad, and that was completely horrible. For instance, yeah, like you have a character, perhaps you want to like look from his head to his toes and go from his toes to his head and so on. And whoa, so you can do all the animation that you want with this. And you'll still have, I don't know why my, Yeah, so you can still like get some extra animation on top of it if you want. You're not completely locked into where these two objects are. And I think that's a really good thing to do. That's how you usually will approach a rig as well, where you have, for instance, for a finger control, you might have a group to place the control into place so that you have zero values on the control, but you would have another group between that placement group and the control where you could put like set your own key so that you could have an attribute to drive, for instance, a fist pose or like close fingers, but you would still have no values on the actual control. You would just have values on that group above it. So I would really recommend that you do something like this. And what you could also do is for your character, you could probably like set up multiple locators, so like a locator where you want it to follow. If you have like a rig for this character, and if it's going on the spine, perhaps you want to have one down by the feet or up by the head, all depending on where you want to focus, and then you will do that as the constraint, and then you can just animate this camera aim a bit more freely to get the intended result that you want from your animation. Okay, cool. I hope that gave you some ideas, and I wasn't rambling too much about this and made some sense. Let us know if there's anything else we can help you with, and good luck with it.